The temptation of Eve by the serpent. The story of the temptation of Eve by the serpent is found in the book of Genesis, chapter 3, and is a foundational episode in the biblical narrative about the fall of mankind. In the story, we are introduced to the Garden of Eden, a paradise created by God where Adam and Eve, the first humans, lived. They enjoyed a perfect relationship with God and had access to everything they needed to live in peace and harmony. However, in the midst of that garden, God had planted a special tree, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. God had given Adam and Eve a clear instruction. They could freely eat from all the trees in the garden, except for the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, because if they ate from it, they would certainly die. This command was a test of their trust and obedience to God. One day, a serpent, which according to the biblical account was more cunning than any beast of the field that the Lord God had made, approached Eve. Although the scriptures do not give details on how the serpent acquired the ability to speak, the serpent began a conversation with Eve, questioning what God had commanded. With subtlety and deception, it asked, "Did God really say, 'You must not eat from any tree in the garden'?" Genesis 3 verse 1. Eve responded to the serpent by explaining that they could eat the fruit of all the trees in the garden, except for the tree in the middle of the garden, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. God said, "You must not eat from it, nor touch it, or you will die." Genesis 3 verse 3. Eve added, emphasizing the seriousness of disobeying God. However, the serpent, cunningly, challenged God's warning and planted doubt in Eve's mind. "You will not surely die. For God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." Genesis 3 verses 4 to 5. This statement was a direct attack on God's character and purposes, suggesting that he was withholding something good from them, something that could make them like him. The temptation presented by the serpent was powerful. Eve saw the fruit of the tree with new eyes. She considered it good for food, pleasing to the eye, and desirable for gaining wisdom. Genesis 3 verse 6. Three aspects of the fruit attracted her: its nourishing look, its beauty, and the promise of wisdom. Eve, driven by the desire to obtain something that seemed good and that could give her knowledge, decided to take the fruit and eat it. Then she also gave some to her husband Adam, who was with her, and he ate it as well. At that moment, their eyes were opened, just as the serpent had said, but not in the way they expected. Instead of experiencing divine knowledge that would make them like God, Adam and Eve realized they were naked. They felt shame for the first time, an emotion unknown to them in their state of innocence. Immediately, they sewed fig leaves together to cover themselves and hide their nakedness. After this event, they heard the voice of God walking in the garden in the cool of the day. Adam and Eve, aware of their disobedience and burdened by guilt, hid among the trees of the garden. God, knowing what had happened, called to them, "Where are you?" Genesis 3 verse 9. When God confronted Adam, he responded, "I heard you in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid." Genesis 3 verse 10. God asked if he had eaten from the tree he had commanded them not to eat from, and Adam blamed Eve, saying, "The woman you put here with me, she gave me some fruit from the tree, and I ate it." Genesis 3 verse 12. When God asked Eve what she had done, she blamed the serpent. "The serpent deceived me, and I ate." Genesis 3 verse 13. God then pronounced judgment on the serpent, the woman, and the man. To the serpent he said, "Cursed are you above all livestock and all wild animals. You will crawl on your belly, and you will eat dust all the days of your life." Genesis 3 verse 14. Moreover, God prophesied that there would be enmity between the offspring of the woman and that of the serpent. "He will crush your head, and you will strike his heel." Genesis 3 verse 15, a reference to the future victory of Christ over evil. To Eve, he said that her pain in childbirth would greatly increase, and that her desire would be for her husband, and he would rule over her. To Adam, he said that the ground would be cursed because of him, and that he would have to toil for food from it. Finally, God expelled them from the Garden of Eden, so they could not eat from the tree of life and live forever in their fallen state. This episode marks the beginning of sin and the separation between God and humanity, a fracture that, according to the Bible, would only be restored through Jesus Christ.